I don't think so Taliban will allow women to come. In fact, what we could have done actually was to do virtual education, which we could have
Yeah,
done
yeah.
through internet or net. But I think even
Mhm.
that is not feasible, because as of now, Amirul Mominin is totally against it.
Welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. The acting Taliban Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi was in Darul Uloom, Deoband last week, and you all read. Many of you would have read the coverage of those of that visit. It is seen as historic because it kind of restores a tie that was snapped in 1979 when the USSR invaded Afghanistan. Um, in terms of diplomacy, what does it amount to? What do the Taliban want? I have with me Alok Bansal of the India Foundation, and we're going to talk about the Taliban, Deoband, and all that stuff in between. Alok, first time ever a Taliban leader has visited Deoband. So, what do you read in this?
See, we need to understand this is the first time a senior Taliban leader has visited India. So obviously, visiting Deoband is only a part of it.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, Taliban belong to Deobandi school of Sunni Islam, and they believe in Deobandi ideology. And Darul Ulema Hind Deoband is actually the ultimate seminary from where Deobandi thought process actually started. So, for
Mhm.
anybody who believes in Taliban ideology, Deoband is the Al Azhar, you can say, the ultimate seminary as far as they are concerned. So
Mhm.
going there was of immense significance, and I think that's why he went there. And he also received a phenomenal welcome, because for seminary also it was very important, because
Yeah.
every educational institution prides itself on people who are their alumni. Here he was not an alumni, but he was somebody who was actually driven by the thought process which emanates from there. So
Mhm.
they probably tried to propagate it, and they actually gave him a uh, phenomenal welcome. And I think people, the pupils and the faculty of Deoband, they all justifiably took a lot of pride in his visit.
So there is a Haqqaniya Madarsa in Pakistan. Are they kind of distancing themselves from that because they all grew from there?
See, they may have grown from here, but the fact is, the basis, the genesis of the ideology of Deobandi school emanates from Darul Ulema Hind. That everybody accepts. And the rector of Darul Ulema Hind has always been held in very, very high esteem by
Mhm.
everyone. And that factor needs to be understood, that be it Deobandis in Afghanistan, or for that matter, even in Pakistan, on theological matters, Deoband's views are given a lot of credence and respect. That is a fact. So that's important. And in any case, considering the relationship between Deoband and uh, uh, between Taliban and Pakistan in recent times, obviously the distancing has to be there, because
Mhm.
um, Pakistan and Taliban are definitely not on the same page as far as things are concerned today.
So that Haqqaniya Madarsa, is it more in that sense tuned to the the war and the jihad and all that, minus all the theological underpinnings?
See, the thing is, it belongs to an ideology. It was created to train people for jihad initially.
Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course, as Taliban grew out, and I think the people, most of the interns who actually gravitated to become hardcore Taliban leaders, emerged from that particular seminary. So that was important. But
Mhm.
that was only a seminary which was used by Pakistani establishment to create the recruits for the jihad which they had waged against Afghanistan.
Mhm. Tell me, the Taliban is a terrorist group and it has an obscurantist ideology. You've seen how they treat women. What would they have discussed with the Deoband? I mean, I know this is speculative, but
Discussed with whom? Deoband or with the government of
With
India?
Deoband.
Or they,
With Deoband.
see, I think they wouldn't have discussed a great deal of things. It was basically a validation for both of them. Please understand. For Taliban, it was a validation that from the highest seminary, which of Deobandi thought, they got
Mm-hmm.
a welcome. They were so it was a validation for the domestic audience, that the domestic population felt, yes, that this leader has succeeded in going to Deoband, which is of course the ultimate as far as the thought process is concerned. From Deoband's point of view, it was very important that you had a very important person who believes in your ideology has come to you. So for both, it was a mutual validation. I really don't think so they would have actually discussed much. There could have been a lot of discussion, because if there is somebody who can probably moderate the Amirul Mu'minin stance on many of the obscurantist issues, the only
Mm-hmm.
one, the only institution which could probably have some say is probably today Darul Uloom Deoband, because if they say something, it may, again, I'm again putting it, it may probably impinge on the thought process of Amirul Mu'minin. That's all.
Are their views on women very different? I don't know. I'm asking. Do they think very differently on education for women?
I don't think so. They are as obscurantist as Taliban have been. In between, there was an attempt to modify and modernize Deoband to a very great extent. Unfortunately, it didn't succeed, because the leadership which was trying to do was actually removed
Mm-hmm.
by others. But yes, as I said, if there is any institution which may have some influence on Amirul Mu'minin as far as moderating his stance is concerned, that is only Deoband. No other institution or individual today can have that sort of influence, because even the Grand Mufti of Makkah would not have that sort of an impact, because Deobandis do not necessarily believe in all Wahhabi ideology. The complete
Mm-hmm.
Wahhabi thought process and Deobandi thought process, though similar to a very great extent, has significant differences.
Mm-hmm. So, would a okay, maybe okay, he went to Deoband. Would you think a visit to maybe AMU or Jamia would have also been provide a kind of balance, or it wouldn't have worked?
It wouldn't have worked. AMU and Jamia basically provide a secular education. If you look at Sir
Yeah.
Syed Ahmad Khan's vision as far as AMU is concerned, it was a different. He wanted to give a Western education, which in any
Mm-hmm.
case, as far as they are concerned, is not worth it. So they wouldn't like to go to AMU. Barelvi thought process, again, AMU was Ahmad Khan was more Barelvi in his orientation. So all those thought processes actually didn't make us difference. Taliban had nothing to gain by visiting AMU, or for that matter, Jamia Millia Islam. It
Mm-hmm.
is for others. Maybe when Pakistani leaders come, for them, Jamia and AMU are important. I remember I had organized the first Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan Memorial Lecture in Jamia, and
Mm-hmm.
Asfandyar Wali Khan had come. For him, it was a great thing. He was so
Yeah.
ecstatic, because he said, my grandfather would talk about Jamia. So for him,
Mhm.
coming to Jamia was like a pilgrimage. But for an Afghan Taliban, these institutions have got no meaning.
India, is it? Do you see a new phase in our diplomacy in terms of kind of blending a bit of religion with when you're dealing with guys like the Taliban?
See, this is a very interesting question, and we need to understand. As I said, uh, historically, India and Afghanistan have been friends. And
Yeah.
if we actually go back to history, Chanakya in Arthashastra says that your neighbor is bound to be your enemy, because you'll always have differences. And neighbor's neighbor will always be your friend. So because of this, India and Afghanistan have always been friends. And Afghanistan and Pakistan have always had problems. From the time 1948, when Afghanistan opposed Pakistan's entry into United Nations, till present day, Pakistan and Afghanistan have really not seen eye to eye.
Yeah.
Pakistan believed that with Taliban was their best bet as far as Afghanistan was concerned, and consequently, Pakistan government actually supported Taliban to come to power. In fact,
Yeah.
so much so that Nawaz Sharif at one stage went to London and said that the only lasting peace can come to Afghanistan when Taliban have a stake in it.
Yeah.
And as a result, they provided them shelter, supported them to come to power. But having brought them to par, we need to understand that Taliban is an ideological entity. It has a strong ideology, and it has never compromised with its ideology. If anybody which believed in their ideology, they have never given them up, be it Osama bin Laden, or today, be it Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or ETIM, that is East Turkestan Islamic Movement. And as a result, once they came to par, there was actually an uplift as far as TTP's activity in Pakistan was concerned. Primarily because of ideological reasons, because they felt that they had captured power in Afghanistan, so Pakistan could also be an easy cakewalk. And secondly, because in Afghanistan, they found a shelter. And since Pakistan could not handle this TTP upsurge, primarily because there has been radicalization in Pakistan, Pakistan's leadership tried to put the blame on Afghanistan. They said Afghanistan is providing them shelter and support. While there is no doubt that Afghanistan under Taliban would not hand over anybody who believes in TTP to Pakistan, but it was not a concerted policy. But yes, somebody who's ideological aligned with them, if they could infiltrate into Afghanistan, would get a safe shelter. And this particular factor, when it got increased, Pakistan felt that since Afghanistan's military capabilities were limited, they could push them around. And that's when you saw that they started carrying out trans-border attacks, etc. And that resulted in greater conflict between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now, considering what happened in India, Op Sindoor, etc., I think India saw a geopolitical convergence with Taliban. And that's why we are seeing that has come. But let's be very clear. As I said, Taliban is an ideological beast. It's not going to make compromises with that ideology.
Absolutely,
Please understand. So if they are willing to provide shelter to TTP, they will provide shelter to Jaish-e-Mohammed also. Any organization that has taken bite in favor of Amirul Muminin will always be welcome. So we need to understand that Taliban's ascent to power also provides an ideological boost to all the global jihadi organizations. And that factor is to be appreciated and understood. In light of that, of course, Indian government has definite short-term tactical gains by engaging with Taliban. But in the long term, it could be a huge liability as well.
Yeah. In fact, we could be playing with fire here.
There is no doubt. Please understand that Al-Qaeda and Taliban have a symbiotic relationship. Al-Qaeda has always talked of waging a jihad under Amirul Muminin. Earlier, it was under Mullah Omar, and now it is under Mullah Khundzada. They have never talked of waging a global jihad under Osama bin Laden or Ayman al-Zawahiri, because theologically, a jihad needs both a righteous leader as well as a territory, resources, and armed forces, all of which are provided by Taliban. And that is where theological validation of global jihad is actually provided by Taliban in Afghanistan.
So we are playing with fire.
I won't say with fire. I'm sure we have not recognized Taliban Afghanistan. We are engaging with them because Afghan population looks up to India for succor, and Afghan population is actually suffering under the Taliban rule. And we can provide them with the basic sustenance. At least we can provide them with some relief which can be distributed to the families there, allowing them to sustain and lead a comfortable life. And the Afghan populace has always had a very good opinion of India, and they look up to us. While some of our friends, old friends in Afghanistan, may be disappointed that we are engaging with Taliban, but I think the population also needs to be catered for. And I think to that extent, some amount of working relationship with whoever is in power is essential. And that's what I think the government of India is doing.
You mentioned that the population looks up to us, but really, I mean, does it matter when you have this outfit which is sitting there, which has occupied the country, seized it by force? They rule by fear, and there is nothing that the population can really do except bow to whatever diktats these people issue.
See, I always believe that autocratic regimes cannot remain in perpetuity. At some time or the other, the popular sentiment, popular opposition will come out and force the regime to transform. Now, as of now, it's not that there are no opposition to the regime. There is a fierce opposition. There are groups which are opposing the regime. But unfortunately, they have not found a safe haven from where they could actually operate. Unlike the previous regime by Taliban, this time most of Afghanistan's neighbors have actually come to some sort of tacit understanding with Taliban, with the sole exception of Tajikistan. And even Tajikistan doesn't want any group operating against Taliban to operate at least within 50 kilometers from their borders. So in that sort of a scenario, the groups which want to take on Taliban are not in a position to do so. So now what we may see is again a very ironical twist, that a country which actually helped Taliban come to power, that is Pakistan, is already engaging with anti-Taliban forces. Now, this is actually ironical because these forces were the ones which were always aligned with India. But that's how things shape up in realpolitik and international relations.
So you're telling me that the forces of the so-called Northern Alliance, or what was the Northern Alliance, these are now in conversation with the Pakistanis?
Yes, Pakistan organized a meeting. Many of them did go. Some of them have still not got. I think Sayyaf and some others. But most of them did go to Pakistan, and I don't blame them because they do need some place from where they can actually launch a counter-offensive. And Pakistan at this point of time is willing to hold anybody's hand who is willing to oppose Taliban.
How stable is the Taliban now?
See, that you have to grant it that they have managed to stabilize Afghanistan to a very great extent because firstly, there is no opposition. None of the neighboring countries, as I said, is willing to provide that. Now, if Pakistan starts, that will be the first from where you can see some opposition coming, because even Iran, etc., are not willing to provide at this point of time a firm base for forces fighting against Taliban. And as a result, Taliban has stabilized to a very great extent. But there is no doubt that their ideology is extremely obscurantist, and they have really not gone in for an inclusive government. The women have no role in the governance. The ethnic and sectarian minorities have no role. Even religious minorities are suffering.
So where is that opposition going to come from?
See, opposition is there. The people who have been disenfranchised, who are actually marginalized, the ethnic minorities, the sectarian minorities, and even the secular Afghans who have actually faced the women, etc., they are all opposed to Taliban. But to fight an organization like Taliban, you need arms, you need a base. I think they're waiting for an opportune moment.
Would you say Taliban success is also a measure of how much support they have within the country?
See, Taliban's success was driven by two things. Firstly, they had a support from Pakistan, which provided them arms and support. Secondly, Taliban managed to sell to the local population that the previous regimes were all American stooges and it was actually an American occupation. So it was a liberation force. They were fighting for the sovereignty of their country. And that's why it's going to be virtually impossible for Taliban to publicly hand over Bagram to Trump or the United States. It's just not feasible, because if that is the case, then Islamic State, which is actually also adhering to a similar ideology, would immediately gain recruits, because then Taliban will be seen as a sham outfit which is compromising national security, and most of its followers will gravitate towards Islamic State. So as a result, Taliban is not in a position to mellow down or moderate its ideological stance.
What happens to that Haqqani group, given reports that there's some kind of fissures between them?
See, there are fissures within Taliban. There are different groups which think differently. All those things are there. But please remember, Amirul Mu'minin's word carries weight. Please understand, he is the leader of the believers, and what he says carries conviction. So whatever he says will be adhered. I don't think so a public opposition to that sort of a regime is feasible. And that is not feasible. And in that sort of a scenario, at least in the foreseeable future, despite the differences, eventually the Amirul Mumin's word would prevail. And that we have seen. In fact, we have seen that many people in Kabul had different views as far as women's participation, women's education was there. But eventually, it is the Amirul Mumin's word which prevailed.
The fact that the Americans took out Ayman Zawahri, the Al Qaeda chief, who was sitting somewhere in Kabul, does suggest that they've been helped by the Pakistanis, who continue to have fairly deep networks in that country.
That there is no doubt that CIA itself has deep inroads both inside Pakistan and Afghanistan. And America has always had deep influence in Pakistani elite. See, America is extremely unpopular as far as the population of Pakistan is concerned. In fact, there was a time in between when America was more unpopular than India, which actually was a very, very significant movement. But having said that, America has a great leverage with Pakistani elite. Virtually every person who's in top echelons of power, be it civil or military, has their children in the United States.
Yeah.
And the biggest US strength is the visas, not tariffs or anything as people might believe. The fact that you can twist visas and you can grant visas to elite actually allows you to twist or turn the elite according to your tune.
So, last question: how do you see things panning out in Afghanistan over the course of the next year or two? I mean, we've had a successful visit of Mr. Muttaqi, and things appear to be moving forward. I think we are slowly clearing the decks for more participation there. How do you see this going forward?
See, I see the tensions between Pakistan and Afghanistan increasing with the passage of time. And you could see Pakistan's armed forces getting embroiled into Afghanistan. And this is going to be a protracted war. This is not going to be a small issue because both are contiguous states, and Pakistan's presence in Afghanistan is going to be quite different from US presence in Afghanistan. And as I said, Afghanistan is unwilling to yield as far as territorial sovereignty is concerned. So if President Trump thinks that he can push Afghanistan into giving Bagram, it's not likely to happen. If you wanted to retain, you shouldn't have handed it over. That would have been much easier to do so.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that. So I don't think so that is work out. With India, there'll continue to be a tactical alliance, and humanitarian aid from India will continue to go to Afghanistan. And there could be a tactical alliance against Pakistan if required. But I do not visualize government of India recognizing Taliban. At least that's what I believe. So I have no influence over the government or anything. But that's what I feel. That I think rightfully government of India would keep engaging with Taliban for two reasons. Firstly, we have the good of the Afghan populace at our heart. We want to provide them some sustainable help, which is essential. Basically, food, medicines, medical, etc. Whatever we can provide them. Try and influence Taliban to moderate its stance to some extent, maybe via Deoband. That's possible. The only institution that could probably, again, I'm using very deliberate words, that could probably influence Taliban to soften its stance on some of these issues is Darul Uloom in Deoband. So that could be one of the things. And having said that, till Taliban does not show any perceptible change, I think government of India will not recognize Taliban. And our traditional allies, I think we'll continue to provide them whatever little support is required. While not pitting them against Taliban, we'll try to remain engaged and give them sustenance if feasible.
You expect any influx of Afghan students after this visit? I mean, perhaps scholarships even for women, girls?
I wish if we could do that, but I don't think so Taliban will allow women to come. In fact, what we could have done actually was to do virtual education, which we could have done through internet or net. But I think even that is not feasible because as of now, Amirul Mu'minin is totally against it. So unless, of course, the stance changes, I don't think so the women are coming from Afghanistan to India. The only thing where I think there could be some leeway is medical. I think he would be willing to allow women to travel for medical to India. And then, of course,
Mhm.
what you can do is that up to left to you. But because he has said that no males can touch them. So if there are female doctors not there in Afghanistan, they could probably come to India to be treated by
Mhm.
female doctors on paper. Now, who treats them subsequently is left to your imagination, but at least on paper, they could come to. So that's feasible. That's the ground where they'll be able to come. I don't think so on education as of now they are willing to change their stance.
Interesting. Alok Bansal, very perceptive, and I've enjoyed this conversation. We should do this more frequently as we go forward.
Certainly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
That's all we have for you in this broadcast. Do follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much.